Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to the Pro Wrestling Report on Time Warner Cable and 540 ESPN. Dameon Nelson here with Christopher Daniels. Oh, I'm sorry, Daniels. Can I say, is it still Christopher?
Call me what you like. Yeah, you can't call me Daniels on the street. I think you're insulting me. So Chris is fine.
Thank you so much for joining us. Obviously, Total Nonstop Action Wrestling has seen a big rise over the last few weeks, whether it be ratings, the big pay-per-view in Philly a couple of weeks ago, all of that stuff. TNA really on a wild ride. You're back and part of that wild ride. What do you attribute it to? What's going on? Fans are finally discovering the alternative TNA.
I think it's just a lot of great talent finally coming together, finding their stride. And Spike TV's been behind us 110%. They've been putting out their best effort. We've been putting out our best effort, and now people are starting to hear about it, starting to realize the word of mouth is starting to come around. So I think TNA is finally hitting that stride, like I said, and people are taking notice, and it's showing in the ratings.
They called Dean Malenko the man of 1,000 moves.
Yes, they did.
I think Daniels is close.
I don't know,
if
man.
Not over.
I aspire to be the man that knows 1,000 holds. I tell you what, when I grew up watching wrestling, Dean Malenko was definitely somebody that I idolized, somebody that I tried to emulate. His work ethic, his technical prowess is incredible, and I certainly do aspire to be as half as successful as he does.
You've been around in the business of professional wrestling for a while now.
16 years.
And here in TNA, obviously took a little time off, if you will.
Yes.
And now back in the trenches of the battles against the Main Event Mafia and Kurt Angle specifically. A lot of people, we got a lot of feedback on some of the matches you and Angle had coming after your return to TNA.
Right.
And just the amazing athleticism that we continue to see. Do you ever worry, do you ever wonder if that next big move will be your last?
Well, you know what? I never actually think about that, man. I trust in myself. I trust in my training, and I never let my reach exceed my grasp, if you know what I'm saying. I never put so much on the line that I can't pull it back. But I'm always going out there and I'm giving 110%. But I know that I have to do this night in and night out. This is what I love to do, and I'm never going to do something that's going to risk it. That's going to make it that hopefully would end it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I'm never going to let it go to that extreme. I love doing this, and I love performing in front of the fans and wrestling, and I'm never going to go out and do something crazy that's going to jeopardize any of that.
16 years in the business, you've seen a lot. A lot of fans out there, a lot of people are talking about the wrestling war that does or doesn't exist, specifically between Total Nonstop Action Wrestling and World Wrestling Entertainment. People are saying TNA should be on against WWE programming. Obviously, that's not the case. But really, is this being overhyped or overanalyzed by the fans? A lot of people compare the ratings of Impact to the ratings of Raw. There really doesn't seem to be a fair comparison there when you look at how many years TNA has been around and how many years the other organization has been around. But this wrestling war all the fans want to see. What's your perspective on that?
Well, I don't think it's a wrestling war they want to see, because I think that they understand that when two companies are in competition with each other, they push each other to do better work and to do better programming. And so, I think they harken back to the days when WCW and WWE were head-to-head. That was when some of the best television was being put on. And then when WCW closed and WWE was basically in that vacuum, I felt like the fans felt like a lot of that desire, a lot of that drive to be the best thing on television sort of went away. And so I think that they want us to be that head-to-head competitor so that they can see not just better out of WWE, but better out of TNA and better out of pro wrestling as a whole. Now, as far as it being an unfair comparison, sure. I mean, they're in a lot more homes. There's a lot of background. They've got basically a many years head start on us. But the good thing about TNA has always been, in my eyes, that we've never taken such a big step that it would trip us up. Mm-hmm. We've always taken small steps, but they've always been small steps forward, small steps upward. And every little success we have just builds and builds, and we're building momentum. I mean, we didn't start getting 1.3, 1.4. We didn't start having 2 million viewers. We started a lot lower than that. And there were times where they said we weren't going to last. But every year we keep coming back, and every year Slammiversary's adding another number to the end of that, the name of the pay-per-view. So, I mean, we're making those strides, and we're going to continue to make them.
A lot of people talk about the acquisitions or the big signings, latest obviously being Bobby Lashley coming in and how it hasn't had as big an impact. But I think you touch on a very important point, which could have been the failure of ECW as well, because that did grow too fast. And then the business got behind them TNA's taking a strategic approach with the growth, and you see these little steps that keep adding to the overall product and growth over a course of time, which is much more important than big bumps.
Well, I also think too that the proof that TNA is becoming viable is the fact that we are making these acquisitions. If TNA didn't have a future, if TNA was destined to fail or doomed for failure, people like Bobby Lashley, people like Kurt Angle, people like Mick Foley, they wouldn't look at TNA. You know what I mean? So I mean, this has become a viable option as far as pro wrestling. This has become a thriving environment when it comes to the art and the business of professional wrestling. And guys like myself and AJ Styles, Samoa Joe, where we found our first taste of the wrestling spotlight here in the six-sided ring. I mean, it's near and dear to our heart, and we want to see it succeed. And we're not going to let anybody like Bobby Lashley or Mick Foley or Kurt Angle, ruin that and sort of be out for themselves. We're all here to make this work for everybody on this whole team, and we're looking to make TNA that viable competitor, that head-to-head competitor for WWE, and make professional wrestling better for everybody.
And certainly you, Daniel's a huge part of that. Glad to see you back in the ring, performing irregularly with TNA. Thank you for joining us, giving us a little bit of your time
My
here.
pleasure. Thank
for
you,
the
man.
Pro Wrestling Report, this is Dameon Nelson saying thank you for tuning in.